Our Jeeps are back. We're talking FF7. We're talking Rebirth. We're talking about the Ultimania, which is an announcement that I sure as hell missed. I think it was announced or whatever, like late February, so kind of close to the launch of Rebirth. I'm assuming I just didn't see it because we were covering the demos and like just talking about the game and gearing up for the launch of the game, obviously. I just somehow missed it, but this was announced late February. The Ultimania for Rebirth is coming out sometime in April. I'm not exactly sure when it was announced, though, but we do have an exact release date, which is April 12th, which is kind of interesting because it's really close to the launch of Remake, obviously. Remake was April 10th back in 2020. It would have been kind of interesting to just, like, maybe push it to that date instead. I don't know. This, of course, is only going to be in Japan for now. We'll obviously get, like, translations and shit really quickly from people in the community. It usually takes a while for us to get it in English. I think, like, maybe the Remake Ultimania came out around about a year or something like that, maybe less than a year. I mean, it might have came out like early 2021. I don't quite remember. I could obviously Google it. But it takes a while sometimes. And I think like right now for like Remake, we're still waiting on like the Remake Material Ultimania to come, Ultimania Plus to come in English, I think. Like it's been delayed a lot. I think it's supposed to come out at this point like sometime later this year, if it even happens. I don't know what's taking so long with that particular one. What's particularly interesting about this Ultimania, however, is that there's actually a trailer for it, which I don't know if that's ever been a thing for any of them. There's obviously, the Final Fantasy franchise is massive, been going forever. Most of the games, if not all of them, have Ultimanias. I don't know if they've ever done this before. At least when it came to Remake, I don't think any of the Ultimanias, and there's like 3 or 4 of them, had any trailers. You guys could definitely correct me if I'm wrong. I could be wrong there. But I think I would remember talking about a trailer for one of the Ultimanias if that was a thing. This honestly is pretty cool, though, just because, like, this gets the hype going a little bit more. The fact that they would go through the effort of making a trailer for the Ultimania. Like, that's a little bit exciting. We do have a little bit of info on this coming from Audrey. You guys know how I feel about that sometimes. But this is only the source that I have right now for this information. So she dropped this tweet that says, "You know the FF7 Rebirth Ultimania means serious business when they go all out and make an official trailer for it. The book will contain secret info and dev interviews, and this apparently is the largest Ultimania series book thus far." So a couple things there. For one, it being the biggest Ultimania so far is kind of interesting. I don't know what the biggest one was previously, but I know when it came to Remake, like the Remake Ultimania was like 240 pages. I think the Material Ultimania was like 336 pages, and then the Material Ultimania was like 224, so if this is going to be the biggest one so far, it's going to be at least bigger than the Material Ultimania, that 336, right? So it's going to be upper 300s, maybe 400 pages, I don't know. It makes a lot of sense, obviously, just because Rebirth is a much bigger game than what Remake was, so it kind of makes sense, and it's kind of bigger than maybe any Final Fantasy, any single-player Final Fantasy, so it kind of makes sense that the Ultimania would be the biggest one so far. Actually, quick correction, I came across this on Reddit, that the original Ultimania for Remake was actually 752 pages long. What I was looking at was a translation they did into English where it was like skipping all the strategy shit, apparently. So actually, that's kind of crazy. So this Rebirth Ultimania might be pushing like upwards of like 800 pages or more, man. That's kind of insane to think about. We have interviews, that's nothing new. Those are in all the Ultimanias or whatever the fuck. They can give us some pretty good information from that, but that's to be expected. The secret info thing's a little bit intriguing. I mean, there's always like some really good info in these Ultimanias, so I don't know if they're just talking about that and kind of using it as like a marketing tool, if there's actually going to be some legitimately like big things in this, some big answers or whatever. We'll go non-spoiler, obviously, when it comes to the channel and it comes to Rebirth, but just after you finish the game, there's still questions, right? Obviously, there's always going to be questions until the third game. We never were going to get all the answers with the second game. So maybe this Ultimania can answer some of that, but then again, we had answers for shit with the Remake Ultimania that were kind of vague, like, and it's stuff we've been talking about for the last couple of years, right up until Rebirth. And some of that shit was and wasn't answered, so you just never know. I could see them not wanting to give us like full-on answers for what exactly is happening with everything, just because they want you to play the third game with the mystery, right? Regardless, whenever this drops, we'll be looking at the translations, of course. We'll be discussing that shit. I do want to give my thoughts on Rebirth at some point, like what I think's kind of happening there, sometime within April, early-ish April, sometime probably before the Ultimania. Kind of get my thoughts out there before we maybe have a little bit of answers from this. Kind of interesting just seeing the community talk about this, because a lot of people haven't changed their stance, right, of what they think is happening based on like the ending of Remake and shit. And having played Rebirth, like they're still exactly where they were. Like, it's kind of crazy that Rebirth didn't like change anything for a lot of people out there. There are people that have swapped their opinions and thoughts, and I'm maybe a little bit in that boat. We'll definitely talk about it though. Anyways, that's the video. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Social networks in the description below. Follow me on Twitter, @DavidYT. That's it. Bye.
Used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore, I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect. We spend it with no shame. We blow that like Coltrane. We in here like Rogaine, or leave it like Cobain.